Siam, Insiite, Queensna, Sonamote, Chekmamontone. So I introduce myself in my Squamish dialect. It's a dying language. I know very few words. So I hope today to take you on a journey of my dad's journey, my journey, and then the journey of you as educators when it comes to Aboriginal education. As you can see by my title, courage is the key theme for me today. It takes courage for us to move forward with Aboriginal education. It takes courage for me to stand in front of you today, because as short as 50 years ago, I was not allowed to speak to a crowd like this if I was alive. And so through the process today, we need to make a difference for our future students, and obviously for our students today. Courage means something to me. Courage might mean something different to you. Courage might mean something different to the person sitting next to you. But in the end, we all must take that leap of faith and try something different with Aboriginal education. I talk about my dad. My dad is my hero. My dad allows me to be here today, standing on his shoulders to tell his story. He's a 76-year-old man that makes a world of difference for me on a daily basis. He is still alive today. He's a hero, like I was saying, but in the end, he struggled through life. He is a residential school survivor. He attended St. Paul's Indian Residential School in North Vancouver, right where present-day St. Thomas Aquinas School is. He endured 7 years of schooling through this school. We're not here to talk today about the abuse that he endured on a daily basis. We're here to talk about his courage to be the man he is today. Without a doubt, he led a hard life as a teenager, but when he became a father, I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and they are my foundation for education. My dad was able to teach us to be strong-willed people, even though he did not have that experience as a kid. In the end, the foundations that we have created amongst our family unit has allowed all of us to be successful in life. I feel, though, without his words of courage, for me to be the best that I could be, I would not be able to stand here today. We had our family struggles. As we all know, the intergenerational impacts of residential schools, that is alive and well today with my family. I do not have my own children. I have 2 stepchildren, because I was afraid to have my own children because of the way we were brought up. And so in the end, today, my mother and father, my mother's of Scottish ancestry, they are the foundation for me, my wife, my 2 stepkids, and my 2 grandkids. They made me strong. They made me stand proud to be an Indigenous person. But in the end, it was not always like that for me as a First Nations person. So you look at the big issue around being First Nations. It's not easy being a First Nations person. It's not easy being a First Nations educator, as we are the ones that are carving a new path in education to move forward with courage. I attended Queen Mary Elementary School in North Vancouver. I went to school with all my cousins, all my friends from the reserve. I grew up on a reserve called Mission Indian Reserve No. 1 in North Vancouver. It's still there, beautiful part of the world. I then attended Sutherland Secondary School in North Vancouver, and the photo behind me is 3 of my best friends today. Still my best friends from 1983. But it was not easy when I went to that school. The first week of classes in woodshop, they paired us in groups of 4. These 3 fine gentlemen were my partners that day. Great guys, still my best friends today. We're shooting the breeze, telling what sports we play, where we're from, do you have a sister, where do you live? Then finally, one of them asked me, what part of Italy are you from? And I did not say a word. I did not know what to say to my friends. I went home that day after school on a Friday afternoon, went to my mom and dad, and asked them, where is our atlas? I want to look at our atlas. I went to my room, opened up the atlas, found the country of Italy, and found a small town of Italy where I could tell my friends where I'm from. That night, I cried myself to sleep. I cried myself to sleep for many nights the first few months of high school. Remember, Sutherland was a school in the early 80s where there was very few non-Europeans within the crowd. I went to school with my brother, 2 Indigenous kids in the entire school. My brother and I have a love-hate relationship. I love him dearly, but I still beat the crap out of him every day in school pretty well. But in the end, through that process of me not being proud of a First Nations person, I had lost my identity that very day when I was afraid to stand up to my friends to tell them who I was. I did not have the courage to let them know who I was and where I was from. It took 15 months for me to tell my 3 buddies who I was, that I was a First Nations guy that lived down by the water on the reserve. And the only reason why I was proud to say that, because I received my ancestral name, Sonamote, that I shared that with my late grandfather and my father. I invited them to my longhouse on the Homolchison Reserve to witness the 12-hour ceremony of me receiving my name. That was the first time that they truly felt that I was a First Nations person. They knew my culture and they knew my identity. I look back at that experience now. What my dad went through for 7 years, he lost his identity through schooling. For 15 months at Sutherland Secondary School, I had lost my identity as a First Nations person. So I had to change that. So after high school, I became a teacher, now administrator, and in the end, I want to make a difference for students coming forward today. There are various people through my career as a student, as an educator, as an administrator that made a huge impact on my life. I had a teacher who taught me grade 9 English. I had a teacher that was my school associate. I had a colleague as a teacher, and I now have a colleague who's an administrator. And that one teacher, her name was Kathleen Barter. And she's the one that had the courage in me to take me on as a student teacher, as a colleague, as a teacher and administrator. And the will and the fight that she showed to me, I still possess today, because she had the courage to take me on as a First Nations student first and foremost. So without a doubt, when we talk about pathways in education, she is one that is leading the right path towards Aboriginal education. So she's one of my role models. Obviously, without my dad is one of my role models. The lady in the middle is another one of my role models, the Attorney General of Canada, Jody Wilson-Raybould. I was very lucky to work with her in 2010. And she is a strong-willed woman who happens to be Aboriginal. And she was the one that instilled courage into me to say what is on your mind and what is in your heart. Because in essence, Aboriginal education is about opening your heart, opening your mind to what Canadian history really is and what British Columbia history really is. She instilled that on me. She is definitely one of my role models, will continue to be a role model and make a difference for all of us. The other role model up there is our former superintendent at North Vancouver, John Lewis. He recently retired last June. He was an individual that grew up with many of my uncles and aunties on the reserve by playing lacrosse. He played lacrosse for North Shore Indians, but also he allowed me, when I became a teacher and administrator, to open the doors and provoke and challenge my fellow educators in North Vancouver to ensure that they indigenize their classrooms. We have many miles to go without that, to achieve that, but in the end, he had the heart and mind to open his own to make a difference. He learned the Squamish language. He went into our community and spoke the language to our elders, which opened the doors to our schools for everyone to come to. So without a doubt, without those 4 individuals that I mentioned, I would not be standing here today to be a positive influence. We talk about 3 pathways of education. The first pathway is our students. Without a doubt, we're all in this system to support our students. Students get it. Students are sponges. They want to know their true history, the local history, the provincial history, the Canadian history. We owe it to them to do what is right. The second pathway of courage in Aboriginal education is us as educators in the room. We will be agents of change as we move forward. We must be willing to change our philosophy, change our pathway on how we educate people. Because without a doubt, we do not want history to repeat itself. We had 150 years of atrocities towards Indigenous people in this country. We need to right that and do what's right for all Canadians and for all kids. As we know, Chief Murray Sinclair said in the TRC report, education got us in this mess. Education will get us out of this mess. So we will be the agents of change. The third pathway is our community. All of us in this room were generally taught through the Eurocentric lens. We must also educate our community, our parents, our elders within the community, that Indigenous ways of knowing will now be part of the mainstream within our classrooms. We must challenge ourselves to include that lens. So our community is very important because all three strands must work together for us to be successful. We cannot afford to leave one strand out and then we'll fall back down to repeating history, which we do not want to do. And obviously, on a personal note, these are my two grandsons. Love them dearly. They are Mi'kmaq First Nations from Newfoundland. My stepdaughter married a guy from Newfoundland whose family was wiped off the face of the earth by colonization. They recently, through bloodlines, received their status back. So their names are Jet and Cade. The big man, I think he's big, he started kindergarten this year. And all I want to see when we talk about courage and going forward with courage is that his experience in school as a First Nations child is better than mine was, because I know mine was better than my dad's. So as we move forward in this pathway with education, we always talk about go forward with courage, because it will take courage for us to be successful in education. OCM Hoichka, thank you.